Okay, so Peter and I are up in this attic and we have some condensate issues that we're going to be fixing today. Here is our unit and here's our piping. There's a T right there in the center of the screen that goes over, and just ends. So we're gonna get rid of that T. And this trap's in a bad spot where it's gonna condense onto the ceiling. So we're gonna be doing an easy trap here, as well as a float switch to prevent water from dripping to the ceiling again, which is what originally happened. And this I think looks okay. It's a little bit suspicious, but for now we'll focus on the primary drain. So here's what we'll be using as our overflow switch. I first saw these on Quality HVAC R's YouTube channel, and they have a really good guarantee. This is Surety brand, but after mentioning it to Mike had gotten them, and this is what we've been using for a while. But I want to figure out what the best way to pipe this in will be. I'm thinking just coming straight out and going into an easy trap, which I'll insulate. But I may end up just putting it here and putting the easy trap here, and then the switch will just be here as that overflow. So if it does start to fill up, this will trigger it before it starts to drip through the ceiling. Okay, so here's our switch piped in. I used Teflon tape on the on the male connection, and then this connection right here is glued into the female, or to the male, and there's a connection here glued, a connection here glued as well. So that's all glued in, and this is the float, which I'll be wiring to break power to the thermostat. But I just started cutting out the primary drain line piping, and getting some water. I'm using my Hillmore ratcheting tubing cutter, but I'm going to be running a new line and getting rid of this T with the new trap right here. Okay, so I just cut this pipe open, and that's completely plugged with debris. So this is gonna need a really good clean out. That's the worst I've ever seen a drain line before. Okay, so here's our condensate piped in nice and neat. I did a 45 there, so I wouldn't have two sharp 90s. I'm gonna pour water through the pan. I have some water there, and it's green because I put pan treatment in it, and it's some really hot water. But first, I wanted to show you what I did with the wiring. So this is our R going to our thermostat. Before it goes to our thermostat, it goes through this switch. So if the switch is ever to open and the system floods, then that means that the thermostat won't have power and the system will no longer run at all. And they'll know something's wrong, rather than having water dripping down their ceiling over here. Okay, so I just poured a gallon of hot water through just to really flush it out and to make sure it drains well. And we're gonna do that again as well. But I did also make sure before I connected it that I vacuumed really well on that line set. And then I put the vacuum into blow, and I blew it out, and I vacuumed again, and I blew it out, and I vacuumed again. And it was clear, you could see all the way through it. So I left it like that, and I just reconnected, and we got our trap here. I am going to be insulating that with some foam tape so that it doesn't drip, because having cold water in here, it'll start to condense. And here we have that foam insulation. I did it as neat as I could. It's super sticky stuff, so it's really actually difficult to work with. It's a pain, but got it all done. We got a brush here. We can clean from the trap into the unit, from the top of the trap through to the other side, or from the other side through to this side. So if you need to get to this line to blow it out or to clean it out, there's that union there, and you could go from either direction. So it's nice. Okay, so I just poured a ton of water into the pan, and I'm just making sure that it drains really well without any issues, which it's doing. So once this all drains out, I will spray this with pan treatment, and I will spray the bottom row of the coil with the pan treatment from Refrigeration Technologies. This is the Viper. And you spray the pan, get it nice and coated, and then you spray the coil, the bottom row of the coil, where the water is going to run down and hit the most often. Okay, and now what I could do to test it is lift it up, we get a red light, and our system shuts down because the thermostat no longer has power. So we know that our trap now, our float switch works. Now, we know this is draining, but we're going to let it run for a little bit, make sure it drains without any issues, and make sure this doesn't trip. Okay, so we've been running for a while, and I've just been watching it to make sure that we're draining well. Take a look right there, you can see the water flowing through. So we're draining nicely, we're cooling, and if there are any issues, we have a float switch here that'll trip and turn the system off. And I really like this float switch. I think it's really convenient, and I broke my headlight, so it keeps falling off my head, which is really inconvenient, but I'll fix it somehow. Okay, so that was simple enough. Just left there, and just went to a house around the corner. We have to install a Juan McLean part that I had to order. I was at the boiler, I think 2 days ago, so this will be nice and simple. Okay, so here is our unit, and I am loosening up our screws so that we could take off our front cover, which Peter will do. Bottom comes out, then lifts up. And here's our unit. Here's the cable that I had to tape up just to get working temporarily, but I will kill power. We can unplug our old igniter. Do you want to hold this here? And we have 4 Phillips screws on the top here that we have to take off to access the wiring. Okay, so I have those 4 screws loosened. This pops right off. Control pulls down. And here is our spark wire. And let's see. We have to pull it through. It's actually going to be pretty difficult because of how hot it is and how tight it is. Okay, so we got the old one out right here, and the actual little grommet had to come out with it to pull it out, and we did break it, but it's fine. That one's garbage. Now, here's the new one, and it does come with a new grommet, which is going to be a little bit tricky to get into place. I'm going to see if I can get this through. Put the grommet over it, and then shove our grommet in that little spot. It's tight. It doesn't seem like the best way of setting this up, but it is what it is. It's real tight in there. There's no room to get your finger in. But I'm gonna work with that for a little bit, and hopefully I could get it in place. Okay, so I got that grommet into place. I lifted up this plastic panel right here to get my fingers in there. I'm gonna put those screws back in, and then we can plug our spark igniter into our control board. Pull it through a little bit so there's not a crazy amount of tension being put on it. And then down here we have our igniter that's going to plug right into our flame igniter right here. This is the cable that's going into the igniter. So there it is. We can flip our cover up. Being careful not to crush any wiring. And we'll just make sure that it runs before we continue. Maintenance reminder. Settings, maintenance info. Reset reminder. I don't know why that happens whenever you turn it off and back on again, but warm weather shutdown. Our water tank is at temperature, but click it on and it will bypass the warm weather shutdown because domestic water takes priority. And we'll make sure that the boiler fires up without any issues. Okay, and we're finishing off with combustion analysis. So right here where our flue sensor is, we can detach that, stick our probe in, and just make sure that it's burning safely. We are in post-purge, so I am gonna have to kick a zone on, but we should be good on that. Okay, so we finished that, and now we're heading over to our next call, which is installing some Fujitsu parts on a Fujitsu rooftop condensing unit. Okay, up on the roof, that's the unit we'll be working on. Got 2 boxes of parts, a new condenser fan motor, a control board, and the active filter module that transfers or transforms the AC voltage to DC voltage. And I'm just holding a ladder here for Peter. Okay, Peter just pulled out our disconnect. Phillips right here. And we got our Trade Fox umbrella all set up so we get some shade. Sun's right there, so ends up working out perfect keeping it in this position. I love this umbrella. Super magnetic. Some people complain that the magnet's not strong enough for the wind. I really don't have any issues with it, unless like we're right by the water, but we're gonna get this taken apart and get our new boards in. Okay, so I just opened up the boxes and we're missing a part. So can't do it. We gotta wait for that part to come. That's the active filter module, and that's no good because it was tripping the breaker because of the motor, which runs on DC power. And Fujitsu says you have to replace that. And if we're gonna replace these 2 parts and keep the old active filter module, then we risk blowing our motor or blowing our new control board. So I'm gonna see if he has it, but if not, that's it. We can't do it. So that stinks. I just had to waste like 20 minutes too, talking with the guy from Ferguson, because I don't know, nobody's ever organized at these supply houses and everything's always a mess, but it is what it is. We have to wait to put the parts in, and hopefully it continues to run for him. Meanwhile, it has been running for him without any issue. Let's disconnect. Okay, so I'm going to plug in this disconnect after Peter gets that screw in. Running nice and smooth. And we should start to hear some clicks. That's how we know that it's running. There we go. I hope the camera can pick it up. We got those clicks. So it's running and it hasn't tripped the breaker. So hopefully it stays that way. Okay, so we're at some more Fujitsus now. This one supposedly is leaking water. I mean, there are water droplets here, but I'm not sure why it's leaking. If it's leaking, drain line's totally clear, and it comes into this pump on the wall back here. So we're just trying to see what's going on with it. Peter's pouring water through, and we're gonna see if we can make it leak. Okay, so we're missing a few Schrader caps, and there's oil around this one, which that's not a good thing. But I'm going to check pressures and see if maybe our pressure is running low and we're condensing too much. You know, this line here is cold, but the one above it's not really, but we'll see what's going on. Okay, so I sprayed with soapy bubbles and I'm not seeing any active leaks. and our unit's off. Pressure's climbing up. Check what the unit inside's doing. But our vapor saturation temperature was staying around that 36-degree mark with 1 to 2 degrees of superheat. And inside we have a 25-degree temperature split, which is exactly what we want as far as pressures. I was thinking maybe we're getting close to freezing or we're condensing too much, but that doesn't look like that's going to be the case. So we'll have to see what's going on. Okay, so I stopped recording, but we pulled that entire unit apart and looked at all the plastics, didn't see any cracks or any issues with anything. Called Fujitsu, started a case number, but they have an incredibly long wait time, so we'll just see what they say. But for the day, that's going to be it. Like I said, we can go home, so headed home. Hopefully you enjoyed watching the video. Like it if you liked it. Comment any advice or criticisms or feedback, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.